Working on this drop down since the last recording, which you probably saw. I had a call with a colleague, IP, in Foundations team on how to create package registries. So it didn't end up running installing GitLab Runner, but rather, well, you'll see it in the previous. You would have just seen it anyway. Now we have our drop down. Here it is, delete package. I'm pretty sure that's what we're looking for. We can test it by, so we'll go back to our view component. And we're going to test this. I mean, it says delete, but so I'm pretty sure that's it. But let's just make sure. So we'll just refresh, and then instead of saying delete, oh, there it is. Hello there. Great. So we're looking at the right thing. Cool. Okay. So now what we need to do is work out how, what does this drop down look like? This looks super straightforward. So we have a drop down, one item in it. That's it. There's no option for a future one, nothing else. So that's good. Now we want to know, what is this? Like, is it a link? Is it a option that you're going to check? It's actually an action, I think. So you can see here, when we click on it, it emits an event called delete. And then we can see how we're going to see this. In the parent of this component, it's going to be listening for an event called delete, and it's going to do that thing, do that action. So that's what this dropdown is. Now, so we're going to go have a look at our parent epic. We're going to follow our decision tree. So is the user performing an action workflow? In this case, it is an action, or selecting one or more options. Action. Disclosure dropdown. That's what we're using. Easy. So now we have a look at disclosure dropdown migration, and we can learn how to actually migrate it, right? So we've got an issue. We found the file. We know where it's rendered. We can look at the documentation for dropdown. Make sure that it can do everything you need it to. I'm sure it can. Start plugging in the data, attributes, whatever else you need to get the migration working. So what we might do first is, okay, so we've got some extra tips here. But what I'm going to try to do is just change this to disclosure dropdown. So we're going to import disclosure dropdown instead of dropdown. And then I'm pretty sure it's just called disclosure dropdown item. So we can have a look at I want to have a look at what does the code look like. I know there's a button here for the code, but I don't remember where it is. Dark mode? Why have I been using light mode like a fool? Okay. No. Cool. And have a look at the docs. Right. So this is how we use it. Just going to copy so I don't have to type it out again. So anything that's GL dropdown, I'm going to replace with GL disclosure dropdown. And hopefully this is also the right name of this Fingers crossed. Not sure. Drop down item. Again, docs. I'm looking for the item. Okay, show code. Okay, this is the old drop down. We want disclosure drop down. Disclosure. And we want to look at the docs. We want to have a look at the code, which has GL disclosure drop down item. Great. So we're going to also replace this. And what we're going to do is we're going to see if everything magically works first. If everything magically works, great, no problem. If it does not, there's a problem. Okay, so here's us using this. It should be in green. I don't know why it's not. I'm getting an error that is registered and not used. Something is not right here. This is drop down. So again, I'll just highlight every instance of this. I'm going to remove drop down. Perfect. Okay, and then we'll see, like, does this magically work? Is that all I need to do? I don't think so. I think there's some more problems. Okay, cool. Mostly right. It's not styled correctly. So now we're going to have a look at what needs to change when you do migrate to disclosure dropdown. Okay, so just put in the data, make sure the test passed. Yeah. Okay. So there's some differences on how we pass data to the component. Dropdown wraps a dropdown item. We know that. We loop over with v-for. In this case, we just got one. Whereas in the simplest and most cases of disclosure dropdown, you pass items to be displayed in the dropdown in the items prop. We're probably not going to use that here because we want to have the action on there, but maybe the new disclosure dropdown item, you can pass the action. I doubt it. Let's see. Take a look at some mock data that's used to render a sample. Okay, so if you're just doing a link, then it's pretty straightforward. Text, href, extras. Here we have an action, which we can do. We can use this. So in this case, it would just be like, just change this line to emit delete. That'll work fine. We could try that. So then instead of click, so this is like listen for a click. Instead of that, we're going to give it an action, and this will be like a function. Or we need to. Yep. So now this is a function that I don't know if it needs to be a function. We can try this. Let's see. Okay. So ideally, here we'll have like our list item. We want to know like how does the disclosure list item work? The other way we can find that out is by looking at GitLab UI and looking at the thing itself, right? All right, so that doesn't work. But I've also got GitLab UI installed on here. So we can look at disclosure, drop down item, and we can see how it works on the inside, right? So it takes an item, it should be an object, as a validator is item. What does is item do? So it takes the item, is it truthy or falsy? If it's truthy, then we validate it. When we validate it, we say, does it have a text length? Yeah. And is it not an array? Okay. So if item exists and it has items, is this not an array? Oh, that's hard to read. That's all right. We don't really need to know. What we need to know is like, how does the action work? What should the action look like? Or alternatively, just remembered, we get this event called an action. So when it's clicked on, we get this action. So what that means is either we can give the function here to run. So then we say, okay, we're going to pass our function to the component. And the function should say like emit, delete, right? Or we can listen for action instead of click, and then run our action function when we hear action. Right? So that would look like, let's go back. So instead of passing an action, we're going to listen for an action. And when we hear an action, we're going to emit, delete. That's more correct. So this is good as well because it makes it keyboard navigatable. So like if you're navigating by keyboard, and then we go down to delete package, we press space. So currently can't select it. That's a problem. But we should be able to action it with the spacebar, whereas the previous one, it only works if you click on it. Okay, so action. We have some other problems, which I'm not sure what they are. So I'll just read the instructions here again. So besides that, to render the custom items and groups of actions and links, disclosure dropdown has the default slot, which you can provide any combination of dropping out items, dropdown group. Okay, let's have a look at how this works. So I'd really like to see the code here. I can't remember how. So what I'm going to do is look in GitLab UI for this custom groups items, and then we can see the code. So global search, custom groups, what it's called? Custom groups items. Huh. We can also look for at the fox. See how many times that comes up. This once, great. Okay, so this is how it should look like. We have this is our complex example. So in our complex example, we have a group, which we don't need in our example. Then we have the item, And then in that item is a template for like some special text, which we don't need. So one of the things we could do actually is instead of giving this text like here, we could give it here. This. So we need a self-closing tag. We've got another problem. Text should go before action. Fine. Now let's have a look to see how it looks. Okay, there's a problem. Let's see if we can find any yeah, great. That's what we need. Okay, so it shouldn't be text. I think it should be like item. And then in the item, it should have text. And then this should be outside of the render. Right? Okay, that looks better. Right. So then, so expression binding attribute creates a new object. Consider moving this to computed. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Just hesitant because I'm not sure I really want to do this. I'm going to call it delete item. Delete. So I'm naming the item in the list, which is going to delete the registry. So I need a good variable name here. And just say item. There's only one. I think it'll be a bit confusing. I call it delete row because this file is called row. Yeah. And then we can put this as doesn't need to be computed because it's always going to be the same. And it doesn't look like we have data, so I'm just going to add it. Never remember how to do this. I think it's like that. So then we return. So this is all the things we're going to return, and we're only going to return one, which is delete row, which is this. So because we're not in the rendering, we add this, right? Okay. So now I think this works. Let's make sure it looks right. No, we've got an error here. That's fine. Nothing to do with us. So this looks correct. Just going to see if there's any other notes, like things we should be aware of. The aspect is likely to fail, so we'll run that. Finding the component can be a big challenge. We know that. This is reach out to Frontend on Slack. Same on Discord. If you're a community member, reach out on Discord. If you move on, be sure to mention the reason why. Yeah, so if we were just going to move on from yesterday, we should say that in the in the issue. Foundations team is always here to help, so you can Foundations team, which includes me. So please make use of that. on Slack. If you're internal, if you're external, just message us on Discord. Yeah. All right. To show you how to do this, Sam's got another video recording similar to this. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, let's run the tests and see if it all works. So we'll also have a test for this component. To be able to find, so instead of .view, it'll be like spec.js, this one. Okay, so one of these two, right? Remember there's two files that are very similar. I think this is the one we're on. So this is probably the test. Let's just verify. Package registry component list. Package registry component list. So we're going to run this test. This is in JavaScript. So the way we'll run it is yarn test. Yeah, put the whole thing, but it doesn't matter. Run yarn install first. So if you update the, if you pull the latest version of master, sometimes you need to reinstall the dependencies. That's what's happening. Expect this to fail because it's probably looking for the old dropdown. Yeah, cool. So this is the snapshot. The snapshot needs to be updated. And these are the tests. So renders doesn't render. That's a problem. So this is the snapshot. Fine. That's fine. And then this one, this is important. So this is failing because this function, find delete dropdown, is looking for test ID, action delete. Okay, it should still find it, but it's not. Let's have a look. Still have our test ID. So why isn't it working? Let's have a look at the error message. Okay. Received a value must have a length property whose value is a number. We received undefined. Oh, it's the second part of this test that's failing. This one. So wrapper emitted delete to have length 1. So what's happened is we've found the component, we clicked it, it didn't emit delete. Okay, so maybe that means it's not working. Okay, that works. We can delete it. Delete. Okay, so this should be working, right? When we click on the delete dropdown, okay, this might be the problem. So when we mount the component, generally what we do is we shallow mount it, which what that means is we only mount the component. It's a bad description. Okay, so we're testing this component, right? So when we shallow mount, we're going to render this one, list item, and not necessarily everything all the way down, right? So package tags probably renders some other components, but we're not going to render those other components. We're only rendering the top layer, which I'm not entirely sure if it's this or everything listed here, but this could be why. Okay, so if we have a look at the spec, so we're a stub. So if you provide a stub, then it will render those details. So we're providing a stub of list item so that everything list item renders is now rendered in our test. So this isn't testing against a real browser. It's just making a mock. It's just mocking this in JavaScript. Okay, so what we might need to do is render the disclosure dropdown, because previously we were just listening for the click on it, and now we're listening for an action. And the only reason, so this component itself is the thing that creates that action event. So it probably needs to be rendered. So we should be able to do that just like this. And we'll pull it in from GitLab UI. Now we'll try again. What we need is for it to emit an action. So then we hear the action and we emit our delete. Okay. Still no. Okay. So what else we can do is, so we can put in like a listener. So we could listen, a logger. So we could do like, excuse me, because it's just for our test, it's only temporary. Then if action is clicked on, if action is heard, it's gonna do this. So let's try run this again. Sometimes with the test, you just gotta play around with it until you work it out. So you can see this logs should be at the top of here, so it's not actually doing it. Yeah, all right. Okay, so what else can we try? We can look at other similar tests. Oops. We can look at other similar tests, or we can keep playing around with it. So, okay, so when this loads, we look for a delete button, and we expect there to not be a delete button. Here, it exists and it has the correct props. So what this means is this is passing. Exists and has the correct props, pass. So we're looking for the dropdown. It exists, and then it has the attributes variant danger. Cool. Which actually we don't have, right? Because this is in white. It should be in red. Missed that. That's useful. Okay, so what we need to know is in the disclosure dropdown, how do you do a red variant? So dropdown docs. What I want to know is what the available props are, which are here. We're looking for variant, and we have our options, danger, variant, danger. Okay, and is this on the group? That's for the old dropdown. Why are we looking at the old one? Disclosure drop down. So looking for the variant. And it doesn't have a list. But we should assume that we can still have a danger variant. So we can just pass the item directly, like this. So we could do this, pass an action, maybe, I don't, better not, I think. I think it's better not. Let's see. Oh, now it's proper dark mode. Okay, so in disclosure, looking for disclosure item. So in the item, this is what it can have: text, a href, an action, which listens and then doesn't send anything back, or extra attribute. Let's try this. So instead of using, this is GitLab UI, instead of using the item, okay, so we could do, instead of this, we could pass it in items, this, but we need the test ID, which we should be able to do in a extra attribute. Okay, so then, yeah, this is better. So then we're going to call it row drop down items. And that's as obvious as it can get. And then so we'll put this in our data. So this is an array, and we need to have, so this is the text. So we can just actually do this. Yeah, this will sort itself out in a minute. Okay, so our action is this, emit delete. This emit delete. And what else do we need? The variant, danger, and the test ID. And then we'll make this self-closing. Okay, so variant will go first. Oops. And then this will be in extra props. Let's get a comma. Extra add something. Extra atters. Okay. That's its problem. Passing error. Shorthand property assignments are only valid in, oh, because I've got a equals. Okay, cool. Unnecessarily computed property. What does that mean? It's not even computed. Let's have a look. What? It's unnecessary to use a computer property for a literal. Variable foo equals Oh, okay, fine. I thought we needed this, but we don't. Yeah, of course. You only need the square brackets if you're putting a variable in there. Cool, no worries. Yep. All right. So now this should be okay. We don't need the item anymore. One last thing to check. So my main concern is, oh, does it work? No, doesn't work at all. Doesn't even have the dots. Cool. All right, I'm gonna take a break and come back in, I don't know when, soon. Okay, thanks.